My dear, my life is a grave you dug with your careless hands. You held my dreams like broken glass, and now I bleed where you touched. I handed you forever. You shattered it like a rumor. You wrecked the home I built inside my heart for you. My life didn't collapse. You burned it and smiled at the flames. I became a ghost in a life you promised to color. You kissed my innocence and left teeth marks on my soul. Every heartbeat feels like your apology arriving too late. You didn't ruin my life. You desecrated my spirit. Loving you was a slow funeral nobody attended. I forgave you so many times, I forgot what my own voice sounded like. You weren't a storm, you were the slow rot that hollowed me out. I touched the sky just to fall into your silence. Your love was a loaded gun you never missed. You never loved me, you just loved how easily I broke. I let you build a heaven inside me, but you only planted landmines. You weren't my person, you were my greatest undoing. You borrowed my trust and returned it bloodstained. I didn't lose you, I lost myself trying to keep you. You painted futures on my skin, then abandoned the canvas. You didn't ruin me instantly. You rewrote me into someone even I couldn't recognize. You became my religion, and I died worshiping a lie. You taught me that even love can feel like drowning. You handed me a heart-shaped grenade and told me it was safe. Your silence did more damage than 1,000 betrayals. You promised me oceans and left me thirsty in deserts. You stitched lies into every kiss you gave me. I wasn't your love story, I was your temporary cure. You kissed me like a prayer and left me cursed. My life collapsed under the weight of your broken promises. You didn't just leave, you buried me under the memories. You didn't love me, you loved the power of watching me fall. You hollowed me out just to fill your loneliness. You loved me like a battlefield loves its ruins. You called it love, I called it a slow assassination. Your promises tasted like honey, but poisoned everything inside me. You weren't my beginning, you were my beautiful ending. You used my heart as scaffolding for your escape. You didn't just leave, you set the house on fire. You shattered the mirror I used to recognize myself. I poured every star into you. You left me in darkness. You didn't ruin my life. You unstitched the universe inside me. You loved me like a moth loves a flame, doomed and beautiful. I believed you when you said forever, and that's how I lost myself. You let me bloom just so you could watch me wither. You left fingerprints on my soul that even God can't erase. You held my heart like it was disposable. You promised me the sky and buried me in shadows. You didn't ruin my life. You poisoned my tomorrows. Your absence roars louder than your presence ever did. You tattooed grief into places I didn't know existed. You kissed me with goodbye, already bleeding from your mouth. You gave me hope, only to set it on fire. You didn't walk away, you ripped the ground from beneath me. You crafted a dream and killed it in your sleep. I was your shelter, and you were my storm. You didn't just leave, you dismantled the light inside me. You made promises in a language only heartbreak understood. You looked at me like love, but touched me like regret. You carved out my hope with hands full of lies. You kissed my forehead while planning your escape. I wore my heart like armor, but you found every crack. You didn't ruin my life. You infected my future. You taught me that sometimes the villain wears a lover's face. You called me home, but treated me like a stopover. You didn't love me. You loved the way I surrendered. You weren't a chapter. You were a cliff I fell from. I wasn't broken until I believed you were the cure. You handed me dreams stitched from nightmares. You dressed up betrayal and called it passion. You didn't just ruin my life, you rearranged my fate. I loved you harder than I loved myself, and it cost me everything. You tore pages from my soul to write your lies. You held me like a secret and dropped me like a burden. You didn't ruin me. You erased the person I could have been. You broke me open and made poetry of my ruins. You treated my love like a thing to be survived. You left me chasing echoes of a future you never planned to stay for. You made survival feel like betrayal. You didn't ruin my life. You made me question if it ever had meaning. You wore my trust like a costume you could peel off. You hollowed my spirit and called it growing apart. You built homes in others while setting fire to mine. You made leaving look like saving yourself. You sang love songs to my ruin. You used my soul like scaffolding for your next life. You planted promises like landmines and blamed me for stepping. You didn't ruin my life. You starved my hope. You kissed my wounds just to rip them open again.